I got all of my bread ingredients ready to go, just for ease of video, so I'm not running all over the kitchen. And I've already pre-measured out my water based on where the tripod needed to be in the kitchen. I'm not wanting to go back and forth where the sink is. So with this recipe, you use 1 2/3 cup of water, and you do it divided. So the best is to use 1/2 cup and 1/3 cup of lukewarm water. So the next thing is going to be my 2 teaspoons and 1/4 of yeast, which I'm going to tip the tripod so you can see it go in. Let's see. There we go. So I'm going to proof the yeast in my measuring cup. So I want to put my sugar in first. So it calls for a teaspoon of sugar, just to give something for the yeast. And then it wants 2 1/4. 1, 2, and if you're not using the bulk yeast, you can use 1 package of yeast. So get that in there, and I'm just gonna give it a quick little stir.
You really wanted one. If you did one, we would knock it down completely, right?
Okay. So we're gonna just let that be. Now the other part is where I'm gonna make bread. So the other thing is now in the stand mixer, not this time, I have the other part of the water. And it's already in here. So 1/2 cup and 1/3 cup went in my mixing, the mixing bowl of the stand mixer. And then 1/2 and 1/3 cup of water went into my measuring cup where I'm proofing. Okay, so the next thing is, so the water's in there, and I'm going to do, now for bread, this recipe, you could either use sugar or honey, and it's gonna be 1 tablespoon, and it doesn't matter what you do. We typically use honey. So here we go. I'm gonna put it in. And if it's a tiny bit more or whatever based on what's on the side, that's okay. And I just sort of leave it propped in as it's all going to go out. Now, the next thing that I'm gonna put in is my teaspoon of salt. Salt's a little farther away. When you have a galley kitchen, it's a little challenging. Now notice I'm putting the salt in here because the yeast is somewhere else. You don't want to mix your salt and yeast together if you've never made bread. It's just something that the salt can slow the growth of the yeast, so the sugar activates it and the salt kind of brings it down. So sometimes you'll see salt being added into the flour and then that mixture going in for bread. Other times, in a situation where it's divided, the salt can go in. So the salt is in now, and I'm going to do my butter, which is right here, and it is 1 1/2 tablespoons. And again, for this, I'm not super precise. I just take my measuring scoop, the opposite, these are the ones that I have, and I just sort of push it in to fill it in. So I've got 1. And now to do the 1/2, I basically just want to fill it up 1/2. I'm not even going to worry about like the exact amount. So it's a little bit more. There we go. So see, 1/2.
Can we have, Mom?
So that is 1 tablespoon and a half of room temperature butter. Then at that point, let's see, I've got my water, my yeast, my sugar, my honey, my salt, my butter. This is ready to start getting mixed. So I'm just gonna pull that up. And I do have the dough hook on, and that's what we're going to be using. Let's see. And sometimes if it's not quite whipping up because of the dough hook, I'll just take either a whisk or a spatula and just sort of quickly mix it in myself. It doesn't really matter about this part, how mixed it is, because the most important is when I start adding the yeast water and then the flour. So let me see if I can bring this over. You can see it's just sort of the mixed up and then some butter broken up. It's not going to be all the way in pieces, like completely mixed, because you're just giving it a quick, I guess more like a quick stir. I don't know. There's probably a more technical thing for that, but all right. So we don't need to wait 10 minutes. I know my yeast was pretty active. You can see there's the bubbles. That's telling me it is ready to go. So I am going to dump in the water and the yeast. And I actually want all those bubbles. So I'm just going to use my spatula and get it in. Now, some people do it the opposite way, where they put the yeast in the metal bowl and proof it in that way. I've just always been taught that metal's bad for yeast. No idea if it's true or an old wives' tale. So I always do mine in glass, either a bowl, like a regular cereal bowl, or in this glass 2-cup measuring cup. It's just the way that I've always done it. All right, so now I'm gonna pop it on again, just get it mixing. I'm going to turn my mixer down to 4, and now I'm going to start adding my flour. I've already measured it out, and it is 4 cups of flour. So I put in about half. I'm going to let it mix it for a little bit, and then I'm going to add more. I don't want to overwhelm it, and I don't want flour going everywhere, so I do it in 2 stages. Okay. Now, let me bring this over. And you can see that it is doing its work. It is combining, and it is pulling away from the sides. This is what you want. And at this stage, this is where you might have to alter the water or the flour, depending on this consistency. I'm going to turn it up just slightly to 5. It is almost ready to come out. See how it's pulling away? I'm gonna test. Feel it, there's some elasticity. It's not super sticky. It's pulling right off my hands. That is what I'm going for. Could let it go a tiny bit longer. But it's not good to over-mix in your mixer. When some recipes say to knead it for 6 to 9 minutes, should not be in a stand mixer. Bread should only be, maybe 4 or 5 minutes. So if it needs extra time, you're doing it by hand. You also don't want much more than 4 cups of flour. Otherwise it could damage the machine because it gets too heavy. All right, let me see this. Yeah, good. Okay, so I'm gonna put the tripod down. Now, because of where I put the pressure cooker, I don't really have that much space. Ooh, got a little bit of, okay, I don't have that much space. And I also did not preheat my oven. So I'm actually gonna proof my bread in the oven. So I want it to be about 100, 120. Is what I would do for proofing. So while I just turn the oven on to get it to that temperature, I'm going to just watch it mainly. Taking the dough off the dough hook, it's coming real good. Okay. Put this in the sink. Make sure I unplug the right one. Don't want to accidentally do the pressure cooker. That will not be great. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take, oh, there they are. Sorry, got to go off camera for a second. Did not anticipate the cleanup. So the tripod is sitting right in front of the sink. So there we go. So I'm actually just going to give it a quick wipe. I had already wiped it, but there's a little, just quick wipe with a rag, quick dry, and then I'm going to grab just a tiny bit of flour. I'm going to pull my dough out. Sorry, I know I'm doing it to your back, my back. And as we do more videos in the kitchen, we'll figure out where's the best place to put things. So what I want to do now is, even though the dough is resting, just sort of scraping all of that. I'm not counting my time of letting it double. What I want to do now, and some people use a different bowl, whatever. I'm just going to put a tiny bit of oil. So let's see if I can get, there we go. Of course. Why would my oil be there? Sometimes things get moved around. There we go. So oil, just have a little sunflower, safflower, vegetable, canola. I try to stay away from vegetable and canola. We don't do soy in the house. I'm not sure how soy oil would affect, but I am kind of allergic to soy, so stay away from that. So just oiling it. I'm gonna grab a little bit more flour. Ooh. Bring you up back over here. There we go. And I have put some flour here, and I am just gonna just carefully knead it in this tiny little spot. It's all good. Just want to make sure. You can use up to 4.5 cups of flour if you need to, but I like to do 4 cups in the mixer, and then if I need to, I can play with about half a cup of flour for on top and dusting. All right, yeah, this is looking great. Now workout for the day. Doing it with a broken leg. All right. So I want to roll it into a ball. Okay, there's my little dough ball. Here's my bowl that's oiled. So this is the side I want to have up. So I'm actually going to put it down first because I want to oil the top. Then I want to flip it so that the whole thing, my whole dough ball, is oiled. Try saying that too many times fast. Dough ball. Okay. Now I'm going to grab my tea towel. Man. So I totally thought I had grabbed everything and set everything out, but as you can see, as I'm running on and off camera, made a few mistakes. So I don't know if I will edit it out or just let it be. It is what it is. It is what it is. So here's my tea towel. I'm gonna throw it over the top. Oven is open. There we go. Let's see, is it gonna let me? It is. So there we go. The bread dough is in, ready to rise. I'm looking for it to double in size. So what I do is I'm gonna set the timer. Let's see. And this first rise is 45 minutes. So there we go. I've set the timer, 45 minutes. It's in a nice warm place. I'm gonna leave the oven door open because it really is just, it's warm enough in there. Oh yeah. So it's a nice warm place. Good for rising. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the camera and I'm going to clean up everything, and I'm going to quickly put together dinner. Again, you know, it's just later in the day than we wanted to. Luckily, the kids had a late snack. So clean up my mess the best I can. And you know what? Maybe we'll have egg salad tonight since the eggs are made. I was planning on doing some pasta pesto primavera. We'll see. So I guess that'll be a surprise. What are we having for dinner? But I will show you what's going to happen in 45 minutes. We'll take the bread out, put it in 2 sections, and then I am going to turn one of these loaves into cinnamon bread, and the other will be just regular sandwich bread. So stay tuned. Okay, it's been 45 minutes, and I've cleaned up a little bit, and now the bread is ready to come out of the oven. So again, I was proofing it in the oven. So let's see. You can see it has doubled, which is great. Set my tea towel aside, and let's see. I'm gonna see how we can. Sorry about that. Again, learning all this. What's best? I'm gonna take a tiny bit of flour and just lightly dust. And again, it is a light dust. I'm going to tip out my bread and just slides right out, and it's basically clean. A tiny bit that clung. Now, what's awesome about this recipe is it makes two loaves of bread. But what I like to do, and what my family loves, is I make one regular sandwich loaf and the other one is cinnamon bread. You could make it raisin. Not really big. Well, the kids like raisins, but whatever. So as you can see, I am just, there we go, patting it, slowly working it into a big square. I want it to be about the size of my pan. Let's see. Yeah, that is good. And I could use a knife, or I'm just using my fingers, pinching. Probably should have just done 2 dough balls to start with and then flatten them out, but really does not matter. Now, what I do is I do my sandwich bread first, because the cinnamon, I don't want it on the sandwich bread. So, just gonna roll it up to a nice loaf. I'm tucking my ends under. Okay, so this guy's ready to go. And I'm just gonna put it in the pan. Now for my other one. I'm gonna close that seam up. I'm gonna just sort of, there we go. That's perfect. That's what I want. Okay. So I've got this the way I want it. Now what I'm going to do okay. Now that I've got this the way I want it, I'm going to take some butter and I'm just going to spread it all over the dough. I do not measure this part out. You want to just spread it like you are going to butter a piece of toast. Unless you're really bad at buttering toast and you don't like get all the edges and stuff or leave big old gloppy lumps, don't do that. You want to make it nice and even and everywhere. There we go. Once you've got that, some people use aprons. I use an old towel. Works well for me. I'm going to take my cinnamon next. And again, we want it to be evenly distributed. Whew. And I do make it kind of thick because it's not going to have as many swirls as you would think. So it's nice, even, good amount. Again, not measuring. So I am grabbing a handful of brown sugar, and then I am just lightly covering the area. As you can see, there's cinnamon and sugar. Maybe you can't see it, but there's cinnamon and sugar on the counter. And that is why I do the sandwich loaf first. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take yeah, there we go. It's all even, sugar lump broken up. And now I'm going to just take and I'm going to just roll and roll and roll this bread up. And take the ends, see the little end, and just whoop, fold it down. Take the other little end, fold it around and into itself, kind of pushing it in on itself onto the log. Take it carefully and put it in your loaf pan. Now this one is a little bigger than the other one, so it could be that my dough is uneven. I didn't quite get it perfect, which, it doesn't matter. One loaf will be smaller than the other. Won't make that big of a difference. But what I want to do with my bread now is to leave it over here in the corner. Now, if I was not already baking something in the oven, I could proof it again in the oven. But remember, we have the banana bread that's going in, so this is just going to proof on the counter. It is hot enough in here. I don't want any drafts, so I'm going to set the loaf pans together. Take my tea towel from earlier and just set it over. And just like that. So what is nice is this needs about 45 minutes or so for it to rise, and the banana bread's going to cook for 50 minutes. And then the temperature for the regular bread is going to be 390. So everything's going to work all together. One's going to be coming out as the next one's going in. So you'll see that in a minute. So here is the result of our bread making. And before I even had a chance, somebody got into my banana bread. So I'm gonna take it. You can see, even though it's gluten-free, and it's got a nice texture, very yummy. And then here's our bread. Hold on, sweetheart. This one's our cinnamon bread, you can tell. And then this one is our regular sandwich bread. And so those is what we've got for all the work that we did yesterday. 4 nice loaves of bread. 1 plain sandwich, 1 cinnamon bread, and 2 gluten-free banana breads. Remember to subscribe to our channel to see more amazing stuff from around the homestead.